Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be having a look at the oversized hardcover collection of Ex Machina. This is written by Brian K. Vaughan and drawn by Tony Harris. As I say, these are the deluxe oversized editions and there are 5 volumes in total. This has recently been collected in an omnibus, but I personally just enjoy the deluxe hardcover format a lot more. I find it a lot more manageable to take back and forth from work, and it's just my kind of preferred thing. So I've been taking advantage of whenever these omnibuses have been coming out, buying up either sort of well conditioned kind of used copies or still kind of sealed copies that people are selling off in order to get those new sort of omnibuses. So as I say, guys, let's have a closer look at the books themselves. We'll maybe just have a look at books 1 and 2 so that I'm not really spoiling any kind of story things going forward from there. And then we'll come back and have a bit of discussion on my thoughts. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to just have a quick look through the first 2 books. I want to just show you guys, I say, maybe some of the differences and just kind of generally skim through them quite quickly as well. So the first book we have here, I was actually rather surprised because I'd seen the other ones kind of first, and it had a much nicer inside cover. So this one has, say, just a kind of picture of, you've got sort of Mayor 100 and the sort of Great Machine. We've got the spines all kind of match. You've got Ex Machina, Creators, and sort of Volume 1. And then, I see on the back here we have a kind of synopsis. Again, kind of cool picture, but kept fairly kind of plain in the back overall. So I was quite surprised when I took the sleeve off to discover that we had this really nice embossed kind of metallic green version of the Great Machine with the kind of cog logo behind him. And then on the spine we have Ex Machina, Brian K. Vaughan, Tony Harris, again with the number of the book. And then on the back we have the cog again. I'll show you, as I said, why I was so kind of surprised, because if you have a look at this one, which again has the same kind of cover as I say it's book 2, and again a fairly simple kind of back. If we slide the cover off this one, all we get on this is a sort of indented sort of cog, indented kind of text along the side, and then a further indented cog. So you see how this kind of looks like almost a kind of faux leather, and this again just looks like kind of dark paper. So they don't really match. If you were to have them, say, out of their sleeves, it doesn't really look great on your shelf. And these are both, as I say, all kind of first print editions, so I don't really know why they look completely different. DC's usually pretty good with trying to make things look the same. As I say, the writing and everything does match up, it's just not sort of embossed with that same kind of green. I guess I could try and figure out how to do it myself, but yeah, maybe not. So let's have a look in the books themselves. So I say inside the book we have the kind of breakdown of sort of dedications and all that kind of stuff. What kind of brought them to kind of writing this book overall. This is the meaning of Deus Machina, which literally means God from the machine, a person or force that arrives to provide an improbable solution to an impossible situation. So yeah, as I say, we start with him basically sitting there kind of upset and kind of telling his kind of story. So it's really interesting. I like the fact that when we go back and forth in different kind of times and things, the tone of the pages kind of changes and things as well. The more angry he is, the more kind of green seems to be on his face. The more kind of calm he is, the less that's kind of the case. As I say, it does jump back and forth in time, so you get his kind of heroic moments, and then you'll get kind of him working alongside, as I say, his kind of co-mayor and things like that. The art is fairly standard, I guess, across the board. It's quite polished, but not anything kind of to write home about either. Just a kind of fairly good art across the board. Now, there usually are a couple of extras in the back of these books. It's different on the different kind of books. So in this one, we have a note from the editor, and the idea of kind of the premise of the book itself, some of the character kind of ideas, and some sort of early kind of sketches, bits and bobs from there, and just kind of how the ideas kind of came about. And then at the back, as I say, we have the kind of creators, Brian K. Vaughan, Tony Harris, Tom Feister, and J.D. Meltzer. And then, as I say, the second book, the interior is very similar build, as I say, as the other one, despite the fact that it's not that same kind of faux leather. This one does seem a little bit more pastel-y now, kind of looking between the two. But as I say, I think it could just be, depending on the story they're telling at the time, how intense they want the colour to kind of be. They don't stick to that standard panels either. Something you'll kind of notice here is they'll go through different kind of angles and things and almost come off the page, just whatever kind of fits the story. And then, let's say at the back of this one, we've got some kind of page layouts, just kind of general stuff like that. So I don't know if someone can tell me, I say, why the book changed, or maybe if I'm missing something and there is a sort of first print for different countries or something, and that's why it had sort of the faux leather with the green on some and not on the others. But as I say, I only have it on my book one, and I've not seen anybody else go into the kind of detail here, so I'm just not sure. Alright, so now that we've had a closer look at the books themselves, I wanted just to discuss my journey a little bit with this sort of, I guess, franchise or story, and, you know, as I say, how I kind of felt kind of going through this. So, Ex Machina is one of these books that I've seen on everybody's shelves. You know, you could pretty much pick any of the big YouTube names out there that have, you know, 5, 10, 25,000 sort of subscribers, and they all have this on their shelf along with Y the Last Man and a few other books, but they never talk about it. I have not seen a single video, probably in the last year or so, where anyone even really told me the concept of what this book was. It just sits on their shelf, they go past it in their review kind of, or their sort of library, you know, videos, and go, so that's my Ex Machina, and that's it. So I'm hoping from this video that I can give you guys, as I say, a bit of insight as to what this book is actually about, and convince you to give it a read. You know, don't just buy it and put it on your shelf. Actually read it the day you get it, because it's a good book. Right, so, as I said before in my previous kind of pickup videos, I picked up books 1 to 3 kind of cheaply first, and then I got a book, books 4 and 5 down the line from, I want to say it was Amazon.com through a third party kind of seller. So I read books 1 to 3 first, had a little bit of a break, and then came back and read most of what was left. And then I think I read the last 2-3 issues, literally sort of this morning. So this run has been really interesting. One of the first things I want to say is that it's a very different book from anything that I've read of Brian K. Vaughan's previously. Usually, kind of speaking, when I've read his things, it's almost sort of from a writer's perspective, and you're kind of looking in on a world, whereas this feels more, as I say, like it's written from, I want to say Mitchell, I might have his name wrong totally, I want to say it's Mitchell Hundred is our main kind of protagonist, and it's written from his kind of perspective. So the book kind of starts off literally with him kind of at the end of the story, or towards the end of the story, kind of telling you what's kind of happening, and he's kind of in a sort of political position, but we don't really know what that political position is yet. It then starts jumping back and forth in time. So if you think of something like, I guess, Pulp Fiction or something like that, where kind of things jump back and forth throughout the timeline as things kind of go forward, you have to really be comfortable with that. At first it's a bit jarring, but I think if you read it as one full run, either as an omnibus or if you have the full kind of set, it's much easier to do it that way than to read it as sort of smaller trades, or if you were to read the individual hardcovers and have a gap between them, I think you'd lose track of which characters and things happened at which kind of point. So it was quite good that I read it, as I say, as mainly two key kind of read-throughs to get my main kind of read. Now, to give you the main premise of the book, the idea is that we've got Mitchell 100 and he's come across this device which essentially exploded on him. This device has given him the ability to talk to all machines. Different machines have different, I guess, compatibility with him, so the more kind of hacked or kind of mashed up things he has more difficulty with, the more kind of pristine, perfect kind of machines, it's going to be a bit easier for him. And he basically tells you the story of how he became this kind of first hero. They live in this world where comic books seem to exist, so he does know of the likes of like Batman and Superman and things. The characters don't exist in his world, just the actual, say, like comic books, like in our world, you know, the comic books exist. So he is essentially the first hero of their world, or so he believes. And things get to a certain point where essentially he doesn't believe he can do all he could in the world as a hero, and he tries to get into politics. So that kind of explains how, rather than at the start of the book him being in his hero outfit kind of telling the story, we have him in like a suit, and essentially I want to say he's the mayor of New York City. So we have that kind of two conflicting kind of things going throughout the book of his political career and the drives there, and his kind of hero career and the drives there. I'm probably going to forget some of the characters' names here because I've read a lot of books recently, but there's this sort of Russian character that goes by the Kremlin, I believe, which is sort of his father figure. There's a best friend, which was kind of his kind of helper when he was the hero, but also kind of his bodyguard when he's the mayor. There's a key kind of second in command kind of to the mayorship type guy. There's he's basically this sort of black character with big kind of curly hair, and every character they kind of put in his political side is very interesting. They all challenge him in some kind of way. His political stance is very much from an engineering perspective. He's not sort of a liberal or Democrat 100%. He might agree with certain things on either side, but he also pisses off both sides. So that's the overall premise of the book, guys. It's basically there's this mechanical based superhero. He's not super strong, he's not super fit, he doesn't heal, he does heal somewhat, but he doesn't heal like stupidly fast. He relies on his tech that he makes himself, but he can obviously control that with his kind of talking, and he can stop other tech, and tech includes things like guns, so he can jam up guns and stuff like that. And the story kind of goes from there as to what the better kind of thing is. Kremlin wants to keep him as this superhero, other people want to push him into essentially becoming sort of further into the political side and potentially maybe becoming president. And then there's the underpinning story, which I don't really want to spoil for anybody, which is based around the device itself and how it gave him this power set and what the driving kind of arc there is. When you get a bit kind of further into the book, there's a issue where they do a cameo with the kind of the writers, and they have I forget who the writers are that actually do it, and they have different writer and artists do that issue so that it's not them doing themselves, and they basically have them interviewing 100 like they're writing his book. So essentially bringing this book into the fiction itself. This book is being written in this book. And I think that was kind of an interesting kind of twist. The only thing I would say is that towards the end it almost feels like not only sort of the story has lost its drive a little bit, but almost like they've just lost their drive for ideas as far as things kind of went on. The first 2 to 3 books was a lot of conflict, a lot of ideas. It could be anything from gay marriage to whether or not, you know, women should have the right to choose the pill. And then it goes all the way through that, and we get to a certain point where, as I say, they change the kind of focus to the device that caused him to get this kind of power set. And that is interesting, but not as interesting to me as the politics, which I never thought is something I would say. But because of that, as I say, I didn't enjoy the end quite as much as I enjoyed the start. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a good story, and they do actually comment in the book that, you know, the only reason that most people get to enjoy and love superhero stories is because they never get to end. If a book ends, it always has some tragedy, some winner and some loser. And therefore it's never going to be a completely happy ending. And the only reason that superheroes can keep being as glorious as they are is because they never really die, they never really end, and therefore they never have that sadness. Which is interesting, right? But it's another kind of, I guess, comment on, you know, not just the book, but the industry itself, which I think is really kind of interesting, and a different take to maybe, you know, when Grant Morrison does his kind of views on the world and comics and how it all kind of comes together. I don't really know which more I can kind of say without kind of getting into nitty-gritty and really kind of spoiling things for you, which I don't really want to do. All I can really say is, you know, if you've ever been intrigued by this book on someone's shelf, if you've ever been intrigued by political drive and challenging the status quo of having a wholly sort of Republican or Democratic point of view, if you want to challenge the idea of how a superhero kind of works in a comic, or you just generally like Brian K. Vaughan's writing, or, as I say, Tony Harris's drawing, then check out this book. You know, there's about 1 million reasons to check out this book, but don't buy it and just put it on your shelf. Please do me that one favour, that if you buy this book, read it as soon as you get it. Alright guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of that, and that I've been able to, you know, inform some people as to what this book is actually kind of about. I've kind of forgot to mention, just before I finish, that his kind of superhero name is the Great Machine, because he controls machines. I totally forgot to mention that, but I say that's his kind of character. This is him here on the front here. As I say, guys, there's so much more to it, and it's just a really good read overall. Really kind of gets your brain kind of going and kind of thinking about things. The only thing that I would say, you know, kind of put me off recommending this to people is the fact that it does jump back and forth in the timeline a lot, and if you can't follow books like that, then perhaps this isn't a book for you. Alright guys, as I say, I really enjoyed it. I really recommend checking it out. Let me know below if you guys have read Ex Machina, or say if you plan on picking it up anytime soon. You know, if you do pick it up off my recommendation, it'd be great to hear from you as well, hear what you kind of think. As always, share this video with your friends, so hopefully more people can learn about this book and actually kind of get around to reading it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.